Hello everyone, this is Blake Crash Priddle and welcome to The Medley. This week's guest is a very inspirational person. He's comedian, counselor, and motivational speaker Don Burnstick. He is perhaps best known for doing comedic material around Indigenous culture, and you'll get to hear the story of how he had to overcome all kinds of obstacles just to become the successful person that he is today, as well as the story of how he was inspired to become a comedian and motivational speaker. Thank you very much for joining us on this week's edition of The Medley.
Great to be here, buddy.
Becoming a comedian isn't something that happens overnight. How did you develop your career?
Well, I was in the addictions field when I first got into this, basically trying to save lives. And I was doing a lot of high schools and a lot of youth gatherings. And the young people, they weren't listening to the speakers, eh? You know, they had all these professional speakers. And nobody could hold their attention, but I could because I was funny, I had a lot of energy, and I told the truth. And a lot of things I found the humor to be a very effective tool in communicating. And so and that's what I did is I used humor in my presentations, and I just became a comedian. It just kind of evolved. You know what I mean? Addictions has evolved. The understanding of addictions, relation to trauma. And as well as, you know, like we're dealing with meth and really high, really intense addictions, eh? You know, so the evolution of addictions and the evolution of self and understanding self is always changing, eh? It's always changing. So we're always evolving. And right now, addictions and trauma are so closely related. So if you heal your trauma and you heal some of your pain, what I found is that the desire to hurt yourself for addictions subsides.
I take it that you've used humor to deal with your own addictions and with your own traumas as well?
Well, humor is a big tool. Like for me, I live in a philosophy of traditions by my elders. There's 4 things they taught me to live by: to pray, to share, to be honest, and to cry and to laugh. You know, to do those 4 things. You know, to share, to pray, to cry, and to laugh. And if you live those ways, you'll overcome any trauma. Like we're all going to face loss. We're going to face grief. We're going to go through hardship. And many of us don't know how to overcome those things because we're not taught, right? But if we have the volition and the will to learn how to pray, depend on a higher power, learn how to cry and be humble and ask for forgiveness and reach out for help, that's where power and healing comes from, eh? But a lot of us, we don't have those skills, eh? I had to learn these things. I had to learn how to reach out and ask for help, eh?
Tell us a little bit about your background growing up in a First Nations community.
Well, it's pretty standard, you know, like very, very different. You know, like I'm a survivor of residential school. I survived all those things: Indian hospital, day school, and back then there was such a divide from Canadian society and Indigenous. Eh? You know, we knew there was natives out there, but we were put in the reservations in the schools, right? And all of a sudden, over the years, we've kind of come into mainstream and society does not handle it. All of a sudden, they see all these really pissed off Indians, eh? But you know, we've been there for a long time, and we're healing, eh? Now, all of a sudden, we just now all of a sudden come out and protesting and being angry. It's taken a long time for us to find our voice and find our power because we were so oppressed and we're so hurt. We were so abused, eh? And now we're at a place where we're getting really powerful. We have wonderful actors, singers, athletes. We have world-class entertainers, you know. We have best comedians, you know, like we're really rocking now, eh? But, you know, and it's all happened in the last 30, 40 years. So we're really excelling at a very fast pace.
Are there any comedians that have influenced your work? Because I noticed that there are a few other Indigenous comedians out there. One that comes to mind is to talk.
Oh, there's so many out there. Yeah, there's so many, and many they use comedy to branch into acting, and you know they use it as a means for other things, which is really good. You know, like I use comedy as my wellness. You know, and comedy is a certain genre. The thing that's interesting is that there's so many aspects and avenues to native humor. Native humor is native humor, you know, and nobody has a template on it. You know, if you can tell a good story, give her. You know what I mean?
A lot of your jokes are observational. Were any of them based on your experience growing up in the First Nations community that you came from?
My whole show is based on my life, my experience, the racism I endured, the hardships. You know, because you know, whatever you jest, there's some truth, eh? And there's some hurt with it, eh? Like some of the most traumatic people I know are comedians. They just use that stage to vent, eh? And if you don't heal, then they have a lot of personal problems, eh? I know a lot of comedians who are really kind of, really messed up, eh? Because you got to live a good life, you gotta heal, and you gotta be good to people. You gotta be good to elders and be good to women and children. You gotta learn how to, you don't just walk and get on stage and do your set and go out and and do your thing and be selfish. You can't do that. You got to be out there for the people. So, a lot of people go out there, they do their set, and they walk on stage and live their lives. And you can do that if you want. But if you're going to be a role model, if you're going to put yourself out there, you better live a certain way. And there's a lot of people that try that, and they get called out. I've seen many people over the years get called out, be hypocrites, do all that kind of stuff. If you're going to do it, then do it. But don't be phony, because our people know phony, eh?
Were there any jokes that some people found offensive, ones that you told, and then how did you deal with that?
Right now, everybody's so sensitive, eh? You got to be really, really careful what you talk about. When I first started doing comedy, like almost 30 years ago, I broke around business around the same time that whole redneck thing started. Jeff Foxworthy did redneck. And it really bothered me because, they were talking about redskins and rednecks, eh? So he was doing rednecks, and the derogatory term for us guys was redskins. So I started doing redskin jokes. So my first CD was called "You Might Be a Redskin," but of course our people, we didn't like that word, right? So our names have changed so much in 30 years. We've been called Indians, Native, Aboriginal, Indigenous. Now we're First Nations, and we've changed so much. And my first CD was called "You Might Be a Redskin." It was just fun, eh? But people got really upset about the word redskin. It was just basically talking about our life, eh? Like, for example, if you go to an AA meeting because you have no coffee at home, you might be a redskin. Like that was my punchline, right? And that's my first CD. I came over about 29 years ago. I put it out, and because I'm the youngest in my family, I was a class clown. I'm very extroverted when I want to play. So I put those skills, and first of all, I have to be comfortable, eh? Because a lot of people get really uncomfortable. You see a microphone, you see a stage, or they got to dance, or they got to speak. We capitulate. We get in fear, and we fold up, and we can't do it, eh? And for me, I had to find a place where, I have something to share, I have something to say, and really believe it, and then get up there and do it, and fully commit to it. And it wasn't just comedy. I was doing drama, and I was also telling my story. I was telling my story of survival, my story of addictions, my suicide survival, So by telling those hard stories, I was able to tell the light stories in the end, the funny stories. And in doing so, I became a very successful comedian. By making myself laugh, I was able to make you laugh. By telling a story about my mom and my sisters, I told a story about your family. Am I right, bro?
Did you ever tell any jokes that the audience didn't understand and you had to explain it to them, maybe because they didn't fully understand, Indigenous culture or something?
Yeah, just the white people. The hardest show I ever did was a room full of lawyers in Ottawa. I did 3 jokes, and then I walked out. And I said, I'm not going to take your check. I said, you guys got to lighten up. I said, man. And I did 3 jokes, and I just walked out. They just kind of looked at me. And I felt like a defendant. It was crazy, man. I'd never seen that before. I've never been so uncomfortable. It was about 100 lawyers at a luncheon, and they were in Ottawa. And I did 3 jokes, and that was it. I said, man, I don't want to be here. And you guys don't want to be here. Have a good lunch. And I walked out, probably because I was just as uncomfortable as them. Look, for example, I don't do bars, eh? I'm comfortable around drunk people, and that's my own trauma, right? That's my own issue. So I structured my career around that, where I do not do my shows where there's alcohol. So if you want to book me, there can't be any alcohol around. And when there's no alcohol around, then elders and kids and women, it's safe, eh? They feel safe to come there and laugh and play. So actually, the no alcohol thing really helped me, and it really gave me a lot of credibility, eh? And for me, the no alcohol policy was just a selfish thing. Oh, I don't want to be around drunks. But what it did is it gave my humor some sacredness. It gave my career some validity, eh? It said, Don Burnstick, he doesn't swear on stage. Don Burnstick doesn't do his shows in bars, So it gave me a little bit different angle, eh? And it gave me a lot of validity, especially with our people.
The other joke that you told that I thought was really funny was you told somebody to calm down and you said, go eat some bologna or something. I howled at that one. Remember that?
Oh, yes. Yeah, because sometimes people take themselves too serious, right? like calm down, have some bologna, give a hickey or something, like, or even take a fart, like just release something, like calm down. Because some people take, especially these days, I think what happened is we get so much information coming at us with our phones that we have short fuses now, and we snap, we snap. It doesn't take much to get people pissed off. A joke can upset people, a look, people today are very hypersensitive. They're always looking for a fight.
That's very true. And sometimes people just don't stop and think, is this joke worth getting upset over, or can we just let it go because it didn't suggest that there's anything wrong? It was all just meant to be funny.
Yeah, exactly. And every comedian, we're very, very careful. The big ones, the professional ones, to the young. I've seen comedians' careers stop because they're so committed to a bit. No, this is funny. And I'm going, no, it's not going to be good. It's going to go bad. And they go, no, I'm going to do it. It's funny. And they do this joke, and it just bombs, and it pisses people off, and they're done. You got to adapt with the times. You have to adapt with the people. And I know I've been doing this for 30 years, So I know how to adapt and roll. And a lot of comedians, they think, if I get really gross, I'll be really funny, And it's not. Funny is funny. Some people like gross humor, but funny is funny. And for me, I've learned how to tap into the indigenous funny bone. And because right now everybody's trying to be indigenous, pretendians, it's a good time to be Indian. Now all of a sudden I got a lot of white fans. It's funny, man. It's crazy being Don Burnstick right now. And native humor is pretty crazy. It's pretty exciting.
I've met a lot of indigenous people, and the ones that I've met always had some kind of good joke to tell. They love to laugh. They, they see humor in a lot of things, and it's good. And I think that it's nice to see them having a laugh and, looking at things from a different light.
I just want to say one thing. We have so much causes and so many things we're advocating for, and we're fighting, and it's so good. It's so powerful. Our people are so powerful. And when we fight hard. When we advocate hard. But we need to take a break. We can't always be fighting, You gotta stop. You gotta go to a ceremony. You gotta stop. You need to hug somebody. You gotta stop. You need to laugh. Like take a break. Don't always be so fighty. And there's people that walk amongst us. They're so fighty. They're the first at the protest. They're the first at the band office. They're the first to appeal the election. I call these ones pissed off Indians. Like you gotta stop. Like calm down. Let the rest of us catch up to you. There's strength in numbers. You don't have to have the megaphone, We're doing well. I was there in 1986 when the sobriety movement started. 1986, my friend. I was 22 years old, and people said, "Time to sober up Indians." And that was like almost 40 years ago, my friend. So we've come a long ways, We've come a long ways. And these new modern advocates, you guys got to calm down and quit being so angry all the time. Like find some humor, And boy, I tell you, now they're canceling each other. I see natives fighting on social media. They're trying to cancel each other. Entertainers are fighting. Comedians are fighting. And these are natives. Like, come on. Like, if you get off the res, don't bring the res with you. Like leave it back with it. Like, let's all get along. You know what I mean?
It's like there have been times being autistic. There have been times where I told a few jokes about autism, and some people didn't particularly like them. They're saying, Blake, you shouldn't be making fun of yourself. And I say, like, why not? It's just a good joke, and I have the right to, because that's part of who I am. As long as you're not suggesting that somebody should be harmed or anything like that, or as long as it doesn't reinforce a negative stereotype, and if it's meant to be funny and nothing else, then people definitely shouldn't freak out over it. And your material is awesome, and I love it.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I really appreciate that, because over the years I've learned how to do it. I've learned, and I could have followed, the raw and go really raw and swear lots. I could have went that way. But my elders, when I first started, they said, it's time. You get out there and do it. But two things you do not do. Don't swear. And I said, how come? How come I can't swear? And they said, they're not paying you to go swear at them. And I found that interesting, because I see a lot of these native comedians, they go to these native communities, these casinos, these events, and they get up on a microphone and they start swearing. It's like people are paying them to swear at them, Like, we're not paying you to go swear at people, So I want to thank my elders. 30 years ago, they told me don't swear at people on stage. Don't keep it. There's more funnier ways than to say the F word, right? And the other thing they told me is don't do your shows in bars. Don't do your shows for, like, try to use your humor to heal and help people, you know. So I don't do the comedy clubs. I never get invited to the Montreal Comedy Festival. I don't do these big comedy festivals, these big white man festivals. I don't do these things because I'm not in that genre. I'm not in their corral, right? I blaze my own trail. I've done my own thing, you know. And what's interesting, I've done this without the support of APTN. APTN has never put me on their network, eh? You know, so it's really quite wild, you know. I kind of got this famous without them.
I noticed that back in July that you did a Canada Day show, and I realized that Canada Day has become controversial in recent years due to the recent discovery of unmarked graves on residential school sites. How do you feel about Canada Day? Because some people feel conflicted and don't feel comfortable celebrating it anymore.
I think Canada is changing like the weather because all the secrets are coming out, and it's really hard to celebrate Canada Day now when they know what they've done, eh? You know, and that September 30th is a reminder, you know, and all that kind of stuff, right? It's just powerful, you know. And these new Canadians, these non-natives, they're so uncomfortable with it. And they're going, well, we don't know what to do about it. You know, well, we're not asking you, you know, we just want you to understand why this is so important to us, eh? You know, this is so, like, being a survivor, you know, like, and these young people need to understand something. You guys, one day you're going to be descendants of survivors. There's not going to be any more of us around, eh? You know, like, I went to boarding school for 3 days. 3 days I went to residential school. Only 3 days. They kicked me out, eh? But I'm a survivor. And I'm probably going to be the last survivor, eh? You know, in about 30 years, when I'm 90, you know, I might be the last remaining survivor. So, you know, you guys, you got survivors in your community. You got survivors in your home. You know, talk to them. Honor them. Love them. Respect them. Honor their journey. You know, listen to their pain. Like, these are the ones, man. Because these ones are going to be going soon, eh? And you don't want them leaving with that pain, but they carry it all their lives, eh? So I just want to say that. Sorry about that. I know it's supposed to be funny. But, you know, we've got some serious stuff to talk about, eh?
What else would you tell people that may be dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder or trauma and are using drugs or alcohol to cope? What's the best bit of advice that you give them?
Understand something, my friends. If you're going through a lot of pain and trauma, some of it's not yours, eh? You're born into it. It's called, you know, multi-generational trauma. I did not know why I was the way I was, but then I started looking at my parents and what they went through and my siblings. You know, it has a big effect on us, eh? So we're born into this stuff, eh? You're born angry. You're born jealous. You know, you learn how to do this stuff, eh? And school has taught us how to judge, you know, and how to be bullies and stuff. So we got to relearn kindness. We got to relearn all these things, eh? And how I learned how to relearn these things is you pray, you share in a good way, and you cry when you're hurt, and then you laugh. And a lot of people don't know how to laugh, eh? You know, they get all backwards. When it's time to play, they want to get serious. You know, when it's time to get serious, they want to laugh, eh? Those are the ones that are really confused, eh? So what I've learned is like when I go into prayer, I really know how to go into prayer mode, eh? When I go into a counseling session and I want to heal myself on how to do that. When I cry, when I grieve, I know how to cry really hard. And a lot of people think if I start crying, I'm not going to stop. Believe me, you stop crying, but you just release a lot of pain, eh? And the same thing, when you laugh really hard, tears come, your body's shaking, your stomach hurts, your head hurts, and you're releasing so much pain when you laugh really, really hard. But when's the last time you laughed that hard? When is the last time you really laughed that hard where you cried, eh? Because that's a healing laugh. When you laugh that hard when you cry, that's when you're healing. So think about that. Usually it's somebody falling down or somebody farting that makes us laugh like that. But I'm just saying, and I'm just talking about healing, eh? You're asking about healing and how laughter can help. And that's my interpretation of it. You know, and I've been doing this work for a long time, eh? And one of my tools in my toolbox is humor. And I've gotten pretty well known doing that. But people know they come to my shows, it's going to be safe. You can bring kids, you can bring elders, they're going to have a good time. They're going to hear some funny stuff, you know. That's my reputation. I do a good show for people, and I love that. I love that reputation I've made for myself over the years.
When I was doing my internship in Wawa, Ontario, I met a Indigenous elder that once said, "The first thing that you do when you're born is you cry. So crying is not a sign of weakness; it's a sign of life."
Especially with us men. And one thing I want to say about the Indigenous men, All that thing about be a man, be tough, don't cry, take the pain, that came from white men. That came from the European colonial system. That came from the residential school system. You know, those guys, those people that ran that places, they beat and they raped our boys, and they said, take the pain, don't scream, just take it. No matter what we do to you, just take it, you know. Hey, guys, that sounds familiar, eh? No matter what happened to you in your life, you just took it, eh? You let those people abuse you. You let your woman abuse you and treat you bad, and you just take the pain. And I want to say this, my brothers, you don't have to take the pain, eh? You can heal. You can heal. You can stop the pain, eh? You can heal yourself. But you have to be brave. And the bravest thing you got to do is you got to be vulnerable. And for us men, that's the hardest thing to do. The hardest thing for me to do is to be vulnerable. But once I was able to be vulnerable and express my pain and my sorrow and my vulnerability, that's when healing. That's when I found my power. That's when there's no more obstacles. You know, that's when I really started living my life and really being happy. You know, so that's the thing I want to tell my brothers. You know, like if you feel pain, you know, and you feel like crying, cry. You know, it's not gonna ruin you. It's not gonna make you weaker. It's gonna make you stronger. And every strong, every brave, powerful man I know cries.
And that was comedian, motivational speaker, and Councilor Don Burnstick. You can learn more about Don by visiting his website, donburnstick.ca, and you can watch some of his stand-up material on YouTube. Until next time, remember, here at The Medley, we're all kinds of different.